Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with another product review. Actually an unboxing and product review, and this is going to be on a red dot optic for a pistol from a company that I have reviewed other optics from. And this is going to be a red dot from Cyelee or Cyelee, C-Y-E-L-E-E. I'm not really sure how to pronounce it. And yes, I know what some of you guys are already thinking and probably typing in the comments. That's just another cheap Chinese optic, and I actually agree with you. But I will say the other optic of theirs that I reviewed was a copy of a SIG Romeo 5, and actually it was pretty good. It was pretty well built. I've actually been kind of impressed with the flashlights and the optics that are coming out of China the past couple of years, because I think they're finally reverse engineering the better optics right. Now, the Chinese aren't allowed to own firearms, so when they first got into making optics, honestly, they were pieces of junk because they didn't understand how to test them and really what they were being built for. When I got into firearms about 10 to 12 years ago, I fully admit that I got duped. I wasn't in the financial situation that I'm in now, and I had to buy a couple of cheap red dots. I thought they'd work fine. I took them to the range and literally they fell apart. They couldn't stand the recoil of the pistol and the rifle, and the lenses fell out. It was horrible. But as I said, the technology has come a long way, and I know that these companies now product test these with American gun consumers. I know that for a fact. Companies like Olight do it all the time. So they're trying to improve their product and really compete with the American-made and European-made optics and flashlights and other technology that you'll see on firearms. Now, I am not saying that this optic is going to be some type of go-to-war optic like a Trijicon EOTech or Aimpoint. I am under no illusions that that's what this is. However, if you're looking for an affordable range or plinking red dot, this might be just the thing for you. It's supposed to have the same footprint as a Trijicon RMR. The gun that I am going to mount this to will be an FN 502, so just a 22. The slide is cut for red dots, and I do have the Trijicon RMR plate, so that's what we're going to try to mount this to. But before I do, let me adjust the camera. Let's unbox this. Let's see what this thing looks like. Let's see if it's even quality. Then we'll mount it to the gun, we'll get it to the range, and see how it performs. Alright, so here's the box that it comes in. Once again, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, whether it be Cyelee or Cyelee, and I also see they have not consulted an English translator about what's on their box. It says, care about you, care about product. Yeah, that doesn't really give me a lot of confidence if they can't do that. However, the last red dot actually was pretty good, so I'm not going to fault them for bad English. So let's open this thing up. And here we go. It says, must read it before use. All right, so I guess this is the owner's manual. It tells us what to do. Yeah, it says that it has the same footprint as a Trijicon RMR. So I'll go ahead and read this before I take it to the range. But let's go ahead and see what's in the box. Looks like we do get a cleaning cloth. We get a battery. We get some screws of various lengths. And we get the optic itself. Now it has a nice little cover on it, so let's take that off. And it looks like it also comes with a Picatinny rail mount as well. So just handling it here, it's actually pretty darn good quality. The model is the Wolf0. It has buttons on both sides for raising the illumination and lowering it. The battery compartment is here on the top. I do have to say that the construction seems to be pretty good. It's anodized well. Now, one of the things I always look for in these pistol red dots is how well is the glass glued or secured within the hood. So let me take a look at that right now, see if I see any defects in it. It actually looks pretty good. The glue or whatever they use to adhese it in there and make it secure looks like it's applied evenly, both on the front and the back. The hood is actually pretty darn thick. Now, one of the problems I had with those old red dots that I mentioned to you about 10 to 12 years ago was the hoods were pretty much non-existent. They were just there more for cosmetic use, but we know that these things have to take a beating if they're mounted on pistols. So you need that hood to be thick, and this one actually does look like it will do a good job. It's definitely not as thick as a Trijicon, and I think though it is pretty substantial, probably for a range or a plinking red dot. I see the emitter back there. You have the adjustments on the back and the side for windage and elevation. So I'm pretty happy with that. Let me see if this thing turns on. I think there's already a battery in here. Oh yes, there it is. Okay, so I see the red dot, and let me see if I can raise the light level of it. All right, so I can definitely see that dot. It seems to have a lot of adjustments. It can be very dim and pretty bright. The dot itself is pretty centered and round. It has just a little bit of a tail, but that's probably an artifact of my eye more than it is the laser itself. Now I'm going to try to put this on camera. I don't know if it's going to show, but let's see if I can get that dot in there. Yeah, you can kind of see it now. That thing looks huge. It's just the camera not being able to focus on it, but that is a very small dot. I believe it is supposed to be 3 MOA, but I would have to double check that. It definitely looks small to my eyes, but as you can see, it is on there. You can turn this off as well. The battery that it uses is a CR1632. So far, just handling it here on the table, I'm actually pretty impressed with it. I think it might be a good match to this FN502. All right, so because I can't show you actually how to mount this because of YouTube rules, I'm gonna go ahead and cut away. I will mount this to the gun, and we'll see if it fits, if it's a true Trijicon RMR footprint, and how it looks mounted to the gun. So let me do that now. All right, so here is this Cyelee or Cyelee Wolf0 mounted to my FN502. I did use the Trijicon RMR mounting plate that comes with the pistol, and it fits perfectly. The fit of the Wolf0 on that is really tight, and it does have a metal seal plate built into the bottom of the optic. It is low enough that the suppressor height sights do co-witness through the red dot, so you can use them if the red dot goes out. So I like that. I have to say that it is on there really tight. The only issue I had was the mounting screws. They do give you 3 different lengths in the box, and even the longest one, which I believe is 11 millimeters long, was not long enough to mount through the optic and to the plate. So I had to use the ones that were supplied by FN. So maybe they need to include some longer screws as well, depending on how you plan on mounting this. But right now, the look is great. The fit is fantastic. It seems to co-witness, or at least you can see the iron sights through the red dot, so it's not too high when it comes to how it mounts, and it does mount to a Trijicon RMR plate. It's on there really solid. I'm actually really impressed with this. And so I think now it's going to be time to get this thing to the range. I'm going to try to zero it and then shoot a whole bunch of rounds through it and make sure it holds 0. Then I'll come back here and give you guys the results and give you my final thoughts. All right, and we're back from the range, and if you sat through all of that shooting footage, well, thank you so much. But that was only a small portion of what I put through this firearm today. I put about 350 to 400 rounds through this thing, and I wanted to make sure that once it was adjusted and zeroed, that it held zero. So those first videos you saw were honestly the first shots, and those adjustments are the ones that I honestly made. Then at the very end, that footage you saw at 25 yards was the last magazine that I put through this. So I like to think that if it was going to have any issues, 350 to 400 rounds, it would start to show something. I didn't have any flickering with the dot. It held zero. The dot is easily seen through the window. You have a pretty darn good field of view. The dot and the optic itself remained firm on the slide. It did not get loose at all. I didn't have to tighten anything up. So I'm overall really happy with the performance. Now, once I got this thing to the range, there was a couple of things that I learned that I really liked about it, and one thing that I think definitely needs a little bit of improvement. But let's talk about the things that I really like about this sight first. The first thing I'm really happy with is all of the adjustments on the intensity of the dot. Even on other high-end dots, you don't always get so many settings. This thing can get really dim to really bright. And the range that I shoot at has very low light conditions. And so I don't want that dot to be too bright, and I was able to adjust it where it was very comfortable for me to still see the target and to acquire the dot and see through the sight just fine. I also like the fact that this sight has an off option. You know, even on some of the Trijicons, you can't turn the sights off. I even think on the shields, you can't turn them off. I know that for a lot of people, they're like, well, those things can stay on for years, and I totally get it. But there's something about being able to turn off your electronic optics that I like, and you can do that on this, and all you have to do is hold down the dimming button for a couple of seconds and it turns off. And if you want to turn it on, you just push either of the buttons. So I was happy with that. The performance of this, as I said, was great. It held zero. The dot, while the instruction manual doesn't say how big it is, I think it's about 3 MOA. I compared it to a couple of other red dots that I have. It's about 3 to 5 MOA. So if you like the dots to be bigger, like 7 MOA, like I've seen on some other optics, you might not like the size of this one. But I like the smaller dots, and it seems to work and be just right for me. Now, as I said, there was one thing about this that I did not like, and it came with the adjustments. Now, the owner's manual says that each one of the clicks is 1 MOA, and that's kind of par for the course. However, the clicks on this aren't very tactile or audible. So when I was using the screwdriver to adjust it, I couldn't really feel it. Now, I will say that the adjustment screws are pretty tight and are kind of difficult to turn. So I'm not worried about, through the cycling action of the gun, those becoming unadjusted or those changing. But I really would like to feel those clicks just a little bit more. When I use my Trijicons, I can feel those clicks. They're there, but not as much as I would like. But as I said, those screws are in there pretty darn tight and they're tough to move. So I don't think they're really going to move too much with average use. Now, as I mentioned, this is not a go-to-war optic. I just tested this on a .22 pistol. So I think the application that I have put it on is absolutely perfect. I do know that, especially when it comes to optics, you do get what you pay for. So an $800 red dot is going to be worth it. This dot is a lot cheaper. However, when it comes to the quality, I think you get a pretty darn good optic for the money, especially compared to some of the other dots on the market, and especially those of the past that I had talked about earlier in this video. I definitely think this thing is going to last a while. I don't know if it would do good with prolonged use on heavy caliber pistols, but I think on a .22, it'd be perfectly fine. Probably on a 9mm, it'd be perfectly fine. Once you start getting into maybe 10mm or something more powerful that's more snappy, you might begin to have issues. But I did not experience any issues whatsoever. Now, the last thing I want to say as a recommendation for the company, just to make sure if they're trying to break into the US market, it is worth getting and hiring a proper translator. Your instruction manual and the box has a couple of weird things in English that I think if you're a native speaker, you go, that doesn't make any sense, or it sounds weird. And that will make people think that your product is not that good just because you didn't take the time to make sure the box said the right thing. Now, that does not affect the performance of the dot in any way, but I definitely think that marketing is really important because perception is reality. So if you're watching this video, Cyelee or Cyelee USA, make sure you change what's on your box and make sure your instruction manual is read by someone that is fluent in English. So everything that is in there makes sense to an English speaker. But when it comes to the performance, I am really happy with this. So on my star system, how would I rate the Wolf0 by Cyelee or Cyelee? Once again, I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce that. I have to say I'm very, very impressed. Now on this application, on a 502 from FN, it worked great. The only issue I had really was just making sure that I was happy with those click adjustments that I can't really feel. And so it's still in there tight, it held 0, but I would like those clicks to be a little bit stronger. So on my star system, I can easily say this thing gets 4.5 stars out of 5 for this application. Now, as I said, if you started to mount this to more powerful caliber pistols, it might not perform as well. But in this application, for the amount of rounds that I put through it, I am really happy. So in my personal opinion, as a range plinking, affordable red dot that can go on your pistol, 4.5 stars out of 5. As I said, you need to know what you're buying this dot for. It is not a go-to-war optic like a Trijicon or an aim point, but for a fun plinking range optic, I think it's perfectly fine. It seems to be well built. It seems to be high quality. It does what it's supposed to do without issue. No flickering. I like the size of the dot. I like all of the adjustment settings on it. So I'm pretty darn happy with it. And this is very much like the other dot that I reviewed from them in the past, which I mounted on a rifle. So it was kind of a copy of a SIG Romeo 5, and I was happy with that. So that is my review and unboxing of the Cyelee or Cyelee Wolf0 red dot mounted on an FN 502. I'm really happy with it, and I'm definitely going to keep it on this pistol. So it seems to work. I like its options, I like its function, and as a range optic, I'm happy with it. So let me know what you think in the comment section below, and if you're interested in knowing more about this optic, I'll put some information in the description so you guys can go check it out yourself. So, as always, thanks for watching.